Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Incredible guests the world over with all sorts of diverse backgrounds. We've had a White House physician, journalists, filmmakers, physicians, psychiatrists, healers, you name it, New York Times bestselling authors from many, many countries. I think we're up to about 20 countries now. And we're booked into 2024, 206 episodes into April of 2025, excuse me. But today, coming to us from upstate New York, it's very hot there. She just jumped in a lake.
I did. Go jump in a lake.
Yep. LEE WOODRUFF, journalist, author, you name it. She's got the Bob Woodruff Foundation. She's raised $80 million for that. She's got a long, incredible history that she's going to share a little bit with us today. How she does it, her perspective, her philosophy in life, and more. LEE, welcome to Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm feeling positive in love already.
And you are. Hey, where do we start on this? You've had a long trail journey that you've blazed. How can you help the audience understand what you, Bob, have been through? Where are you today? Where would you like to start?
Well, I think into every life, a little rain must fall. And so I'm in a chapter of life where it's fun to look back and see all the many things that we've done. And certainly I don't want to say that life shouldn't be defined by tragedy, but the big thing that happened to us, I think, was the thing that people are, most interested in, or want to know how we're doing, which was his injury in Iraq. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I think the important thing to focus on are all the good things that came out of that. So I don't really know where to start, but without trying to be all mysterious about everything, Bob Woodruff, my husband, who is alive and well, is a journalist. He took over the anchor chair after Peter Jennings died, unfortunately, from lung cancer in 2006. And 10 weeks later, he was in Iraq for the 9th time. He is a war correspondent and no stranger to conflict. Hit by a roadside bomb. Half of his skull was removed to save his life, in a coma for 36 days. He had an absolute near-death experience, which I can talk about, and saw the light. And he recovered in incredible ways because he's a smart and determined man. And so we sort of rebuilt life and try not to take anything for granted. And as you mentioned, Michael, out of that came a foundation to help veterans and their families when they return from the war with injury, as they re-enter the home front and try to cope with a life that's different than it was before.
Okay, so talk to us again about the journey here. What's your takeaway today as you look back? How has it changed maybe your weekly or daily practices? And again, if you don't mind making this a holistic answer, a spiritual answer, or just a general wellness answer, what are you doing today that you weren't doing back then?
I think back then, I still am type A. I think there's only so much you can change your basic DNA. And I don't really want to. I get a lot of stuff done. I'm really efficient. But I think that I was knocked off my game more if things didn't go exactly my way. I knew that you can't control the script on life. I'm not that dumb. But I think there was a belief system somewhere in the back of my head, probably from the Judeo-Christian tradition, that if you just did good works and you were a good person and you went through life and you tried to be kind, bad stuff wouldn't happen. And the first time anybody meets trauma, you understand that the universe is just a completely uncontrollable place. And the only control that you have over anything in your life is where you are in that day, in that moment. And it's your job to be here, be now, and be happy. So somebody said to me in the course of all of this, and I just loved it, you have a choice when the bad thing happens to get better or get bitter. And nobody wants to be a bitter old lady. And I have tried to open my heart every day. It doesn't always work, and that's okay, because the bad days really make you appreciate the good days. And just say, okay, what can I do today? How can I love somebody, receive love, do something that makes somebody's day better, even if it's a smile in a Manhattan elevator, which is about as rare as a hen's tooth. But I think that is the way that I've chosen to live. And I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I have real bad days and low days. And I have days where I ask myself, why did this happen to our family? My husband's a really good man. And that's very human. But I'm here to say the human spirit was built to survive. And when you are down, you will come up. And don't let those moments define you.
What have you also, though, had to let go of along the way? Is there some part of you that you've moved on? You're bigger, you're broader, you've expanded.
I think the part that I've had to let go is the part where I thought I knew how our life was going to go. Because I think you have this image, right? You're gonna work really hard. For us, we have 4 children. They're all grown now. And oh, great, then we'll go have this fantastic life where we backpack and travel, and we're low maintenance people. We don't need a lot of fancy stuff. We don't ask a lot from the universe. And I've learned that I can't control tomorrow. I mean, I could step out on, I don't mean this to sound maudlin, but I could step out off a New York City street and get hit by a bus. So do the things now, feel the joy now, give the love now, because there is no guarantee that you get to live to 90 and then die in your sleep. So
Okay.
I feel that joy. I reach for that joy more, to answer your question more succinctly. I'm
Beautiful.
more aware of it.
Beautiful. You get a choice. You can tell us about Bob's incident, how that went down, or you can talk to us about your books and what might be coming up on the horizon, because you are a writer, you're prolific journalist. We're talking Good Morning America, CBS Morning Show, other places. You've done a lot. You're never going to stop writing. And again, you've got some books out. Which way you want to go, creative or back in time?
No, what do you want to hear?
Let's go
I've
back in
talked about
time.
all of it.
Let's go back in time and get it done.
Okay. Uh, where do I start?
The beginning. That's the easy one
Okay.
for the host.
All right. I won't try to bore you, but we met. We went to the same college in upstate New York, Colgate University, Go Gate. I didn't really know him at all, but we ran into each other in New York. I recognized who he was. That was that. Fast forward, we end up in China as a newly married couple. He's teaching American law to Chinese students. He was in law school. He's a lawyer. And Tiananmen Square happens. And many people now are like, that's so long ago that some people aren't even aware of what that was. But it was a moment that it looked like China might actually be reaching for democracy. It was a really iconic moment because the students were protesting and having a hunger strike on the square, Tiananmen Square. And then the government did what the government does there and rolled in and shot its own people. So it was a pivotal moment. You probably remember it, Michael. And that formed Bob's desire to be a journalist, because he was translating for journalists on the square. He was there when the tanks rolled in, and he said, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be a lawyer. So that forged our journey together. He gave up a nice salary. We moved to Northern California, to a small town. And we had a new baby, and his salary was $12,000 a year. So that started our journey, moving to a bunch of local news towns. He got to the network. We moved overseas. He got the anchor chair. And, when you make a plan, that's when God laughs, as the saying goes. So that after covering wars for 10 years, being embedded for the Iraq War, really having some hairy situations, the day that he got injured was just absolutely not supposed to be that day. He was there for the State of the Union. He was out to show all the great things that the troops had done to build sewage plants and help schools. And that's when that happened. So roadside bomb went off. It hit him 25 feet away. And that was that. I got one phone call on that, changed the trajectory of my life. The next year was sort of hell, helping him rebuild and regain his speech and all of the other things that he needed to do. And it was very clear that you wouldn't be able to go back to the anchor chair after you've lost. That's a very high skill of being able to listen, spit something out, hear something in your ear, look over here, read a script. And a traumatic brain injury makes that really hard. But he has gone back to reporting. He's done incredible documentaries and other things over the last few years. And, I focused on how can I keep our family as tight and together and loving as we possibly can. And I luckily married an incredible guy. So that piece is all, good. And then we had so much attention with our story. We wrote a book that was a bestseller. And we got so much attention, it just felt wrong to not turn it back on the families who, look at you. What the what? Love it. Yeah. So that was my next book. And then I wrote a novel after. Oh, we're transitioning to the books. That was beautiful the way you just did that. So in an instant came out. We'd been very quiet as Bob healed, and that was the story of our story of love and family and healing. And spirit, you'll see spirituality and faith and everything else in there, because we literally felt when he was in his coma, I could literally feel prayers, spirits, literally in the room. Like everything was there. People were saying prayers in every religious temple, mosque, church, fire, amazing fire pit somewhere. It was great. And I really felt it. And that was, my big thing is always there were 4 legs of the stool that we stood on to heal. And I realized that they all started with F. And it was family, friends, faith, whatever that means to you, and funny, because you can't go through life without a sense of humor.
Mm. Okay, tell us a little bit more. You mentioned near-death experience. I mean, obviously it was a near-death experience, but there was something more to it, and he shared it
Oh,
with
yeah.
here. If he's a future guest in 2025, this isn't going to blow it. He'll give more detail.
He can give you more details. So
Yeah.
he was in the coma, and many people begin to slowly wake up in their comas. They can turn the medication down, the people come out of it. They would turn the medication down. He wasn't anywhere near ready to come out of it. So when he woke up from his coma, it was like a boom, like a heart. Someone had put one of those heart things on to like revive you. And he woke up fully talking, asking, he didn't have all the words, but asking, where's my wife or whatever. And the very next day, he said, I saw the light. And I said, what are you talking about? What happened? And he vividly to this day remembers falling into the tank after he was hit by the bomb. And he had a moment where he sort of woke up and turned to his producer and said, am I alive? And the producer said, yes, you're alive. And there was a giant hole of blood gushing out of his neck. And he remembers looking down at his body. So he was above his body, staring down at himself, bathed in a giant white light. And he said, I just wanted to go to that light. I wanted to move toward it. It felt so peaceful, so amazing. And all of a sudden, boom, he was back in his body. Now, we have our very dearest friends, a journalist named David Bloom, who worked for NBC, and Bob worked for ABC. They were our best friends. David died in 2003 in Iraq from a blood clot from a deep vein thrombosis. So Bob also had this moment, and we believe that David has hovered around both of us. It was just, I mean, many of you have had this experience when you've lost somebody. And I believe that when you lose somebody very unexpectedly like that, and they didn't intend to go, nobody intends to go. But if you have cancer or a long journey, that death may be one in which you have a sense of completion with your loved ones. But David was at the beginning of his career. He was going to, I mean, the apex of his career. He was going to be the guy at NBC. Yeah, look at this guy. Died at age 40. Just such an incredible journalist and a wonderful friend, father of 3 little girls. And Bob said that when he was looking at the light, he had the thought, whether that was David saying, you got to go back, buddy, not your time. David had passed over and crossed into the light. And for whatever reason, Bob knew he needed to come back because he needed to take care of his 4 kids and watch over those 3 little girls, which he still does.
Okay, what has been a message from all of this, jumping way ahead now, looking back, what's the main message today or a series of messages to everybody about being on their own journey, in their own life, facing their own obstacles, the ebb and flow, that's the drama-rama. What's been the main messaging that you've been doing for everybody?
Well, it's you got this, and it may not feel good, kind of the hang on Snoopy, because the way I look at it now is if I have a bad day, I tell myself it's not always going to feel like this. And I think that sense of doom and gloom and forever is something that we can get to really quickly with a monkey mind. And then it really is that sense of you really can overcome anything that you want. It is that realization that we are built to survive, that resilience is hardwired into us. And it may not be like that old pull yourself up by your bootstraps. There's so many tools we can avail ourselves of, friends, talking. You've got angels, you've got sage, you've got all of the wisdom and magic from indigenous people from way before we started to really screw this planet up. And all of those things are things that we can call on for calm, for wisdom. And then honestly, Michael, do you know what my real and best advice is? It's really simple. Do you want to hear it? If you're just really having a bad day and you feel bad, go to bed, because sleep is everything, and you will wake up into a new day. And I promise it'll feel better than it did if you get 8 hours of sleep.
Trauma, PTSD, is it a state of mind? How do you describe it? And then can you talk to us just about how you had to navigate that? Is it something you'd say is still a daily challenge, or is it more, it's like losing someone and you feel it for anywhere from 2 months, 2 years, 10 years, 12 years. There's people who hold on to it a long time, but eventually it's kind of a distant spiral and you feel some distance from it, and it pops up less frequently. How do you describe all that? PTSD, trauma?
So interesting. I love that question. Not a lot of people have asked me that. So I have two things to say about that. I think the PTSD that you're talking about fading is for someone who has an episodic thing with an end, a death, maybe a house fire. I may be wrong about that. And it's over, you move past it, and it begins to fade. So the wound becomes a bruise. Somebody who's living with somebody who I'm not exactly talking about Bob because he's such a high functioning, amazing person. But let's say you're living with somebody with Alzheimer's, for example. There is a term that I became familiar with called complicated grief or ambiguous loss. And that is perhaps the child you were dying to bring into the world and he's got cerebral palsy. So, or the husband that was the most brilliant person in the world, who was the anchor, and he's still that guy, but he has his moments. And you are constantly reminded of the loss in paper cut ways. There's a beautiful essay. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called Welcome to Holland. But we had a daughter who is deaf or almost deaf, very severely hearing impaired. And someone sent it to me when she was diagnosed. And Welcome to Holland is so simple. You've been planning all your life to go to Italy. All your life, you've heard about the beautiful statues, the incredible food and the wine, and just the amazing friezes and the gorgeous countryside. And you board the plane and you buckle your seatbelt, and the stewardess says, "Okay, we are so excited to be bringing you to Holland." And you say, "Wait, I wasn't supposed to go to Holland. I'm supposed to go to Italy." And you land in Holland and you realize that the tulips are beautiful and the people are kind and the landscape is beautiful too. So it's about changing your expectations. Italy being the representative of the perfect child, which of course there is no perfect child, and Holland being the thing that you have to manage your expectations and realize, Holland is really a lovely place. And it's such an incredible metaphor for fill in the blank on anything that you thought was going to work out one way and didn't. And how do you make terms with that, find peace with that and live with that? And so I'm giving you a very convoluted answer, but the answer is, when you live with a situation that didn't turn out the way you wanted, even though I wouldn't trade my life for anyone. And I can tell you right now, if Bob were on the show, you'd be like, "What? This guy got hit with a bomb?" He's amazing, and he is. But as the spouse or the loved one or the mother or the parent, you see every little thing. And so post-traumatic stress for me, after everything that happened to us, is less about the phone ringing at 9 o'clock at night, because I now realize anything could happen. And I think it's more about something that might trigger sorrow of the what could be, which is not a healthy place to live, but it's a very human thing.
Okay, awareness, consciousness, and here's another one of those big questions. But you know how New York City is, but welcome to being human. It could be LA, it could be anywhere, really. People are doing their lives, and we're all a little bit oblivious to something. It could be climate change, it could be this, it could be that. So you've had to journey up a bunch of mountain peaks and come back down. Sometimes you're stuck on the side of the mountain for a little while, camping, enjoying Holland. Talk to us about how, let's say you get back to a big city or at a big function of some sort, and you're going to get the usual questions you got on day 1 or day 20 or day 200. And then you're going to get other people who have maybe read your books or followed you a little bit more and a little more aware of the journey itself. Can you talk to us about the different levels of consciousness? And again, there's different levels of awareness in man, but you must have gotten this one question 4 million times by now. You must have heard that statement 50 million times. You must have a certain reaction that you've learned to just be really cool. And now you're Mother Teresa about that question or this statement. Talk to us about that journey and the different levels of awareness, consciousness, and then do the patented, Lee Woodruff self-help twist to it.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you the first two phrases that I have a complete allergic reaction to.
Oh, sorry
None of
about
you
this.
should
I'm bad.
ever say, no, this is important. This is a wonderful question because people should know that these are two things. First of all, ground rule. Everybody who asks, everybody who wants to know, thank you, because they're all coming from a wonderful place, right? They're coming from a place of caring and love, or that's going to be my expectation anyway. But the two things you should never say to somebody after something bad has happened are, God doesn't give you more than you can handle, and you're so strong. Because if I'm just about to tell you I'm having a horrible day and I'm just so sad and can I talk to you, Michael? And you just tell me how strong I am, I now have to be that person, even though I don't feel it. So, and I'm going to add to that, you're an inspiration. I wouldn't need to work anymore if I had $1 for every time someone said that to me. And I don't feel like an inspiration. I'm just doing what one does when you love somebody. I'm doing what you do when you care for somebody, is how I see it. So what is my reaction? It's usually just grace and smiling and whatever. I pick my people whom I want to confide in, because otherwise you'd just be bleeding out all over the page if you told everybody the truth all the time. So I think they're the people that you know are your people. And then everybody else, and most people do just want to hear you're okay. They really don't want to know how you're really doing, right?
Do you have a project in the works at some point, 2026, next year, 2025, something to address consciousness, awareness, be all you can be? Not that we needed to say that, but something about just letting go of the details, being loved more, allowing more, show love always. Talk to us again about the cliche, but it's not. Is love the fabric of the universe? Let's go an eternal big question first. Lee, is love the fabric of the universe?
It is, but we're not all seeing it right now. We're in a very sad and scary place in the world. And it's a tipping point that makes me sad because I came of age in the 70s and everything felt possible, from equality to understanding race and gender and everything else. So this is and women's rights and bodies and everything else. So this is a hard time for me. So what am I personally doing about it? I think that that's a place where checking in with yourself. And I'm a big person for journeys, and you can understand that word as you ever might mean it. Sometimes you have to go out of the country to legally take a journey, but to be able to dig into your own psyche and feel love with some of the ancient medicine that our indigenous ancestors were able to use to connect and create community, and try to understand that we are really one big mycelium network and we are all connected and we better get our shit together pretty fast. So that's been something that I've leaned into in the last couple of years.
Do you have one of those experiences you can share? You took a trip somewhere. It was an impactful experience. Did you go to Arizona? Did you go to Costa Rica? Where did you go? What happened?
So we did go to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to see two very cool people who are very committed to a lot of this work. But there's a wonderful company called Beckley Retreats where you can go to Jamaica and work with incredible guides and go deeper into yourself and figure it out. And yeah, I mean, I'm I think travel is a way to spark and open your mind. It takes you out of your routine as well. the stuff that you can get stuck to, your computer, your stove, whatever it might be, and it puts you in a different space to open your mind and see more of the possibilities. So that for me is a wonderful thing, just to get away and go somewhere.
Mm. Can we spin the wheel again and get back to awareness, thinking?
Let's go.
How do we grow our awareness, not our thinking? How do
I
we
think
grow
we
down
have
here?
to
Yeah.
ask more questions and listen more.
Hmm.
A lot of talking in this world, a lot of people talking at one another.
Was there more listening going on in the 70s?
Wow. I think some people were listening. I think some people were not. It was a very contentious time. I mean, you look younger than me, so I don't know.
1968 born.
Yeah. So I was 1960. So, I was 10 in 70. We lost neighbors to Vietnam and all that stuff. But I think people were more, here's what it was for me, not to get all maudlin. The world still was full of possibility. It still looked like we could all stop polluting and pick up our own trash and we could come together. And I think we're in a different place now. And maybe this is what it's going to take now for us to get back to good. But we do have to listen for that to happen.
I'm going to mention three personal things very briefly. My stepfather was ABC's Person of the Week, Peter Jennings, around 89 or so, for
Wow.
a world prodigy oil spill in Newport, Rhode Island after the Exxon Valdez thing. And he ran it aground, or no, they pumped the oil off and avoided another Exxon Valdez thing. So he got recognized
Wow.
for that.
You mean he was part of the solution?
Yeah, he's part of the solution, and so he got recognition. I know, like the Ayatollah Khomeini has been Person of the Week. He was a positive Person of the Week for ABC. Peter Jennings.
Really?
Yeah, really. So it's not always a heroic figure. Sometimes it's the evil villain.
Got it.
Growing up in DC in the 70s, Bob Woodward would come. That's why I was mistaking Woodruff and Woodward. It's hard for me. Bob Woodward, the journalist, author of many, many books by now, used to come to the house to play poker. And as a 8-year-old, I'd peek from the stairs. I was supposed to be in bed and watch, but my mom would host that, and she was dating a public figure in DC. Long story there. So a little bit of DC and a little. I get what you're saying about the 70s. There was a lot of love and fuzziness back then to a degree, but there was still politics.
There was a lot of politics, and I'll give you a fun fact. We know Bob, and when Bob Woodruff was injured, Bob Woodward had about 20 messages on his phone concerned about his health. So Bob Woodruff and Bob Woodward have been confused forever, and it's a joke between us. So do not feel bad that you did that. I don't know why, though the hard consonants in Woodruff are super hard to say. And when Peter Jennings would throw to Bob, he would stumble on it. He would stumble on it. So don't feel bad. It's just a lot of consonants in that name.
Okay, back to the eternal questions. We're going back up a couple miles up. We need a helmet, astronaut suit, and stuff like that. What's this life all about? Talk to us about happiness, awareness, letting go. Everyone's got a unique life path. Just how do you describe yours? Maybe let's do that. And don't get into it if you don't want to. But what's this unique life path been about? Now that you've got the light on up here and you're paying attention all the way, not that you weren't before, but you have to admit it might have shifted since. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still figuring that out. I'm not going to tell you that I have the perfect answer, because this whole thing is I think once we get to the end, we're going to know, and that's going to be kind of cool. I don't know if you've been present in the room when people have passed away, but there's just sort of a peace and wisdom that I think when they get to the end of the string. I think for me, it's a series of chapters of different points in my life. And it's not like the chapter has a hard close on it, but I can see it tailing off and then a reemergence of something else that's more important, or where I need to go next. It's absolutely about love and connectivity. I think the saddest and scariest thing are people who feel isolated and alone. We're animals. We're meant to be in packs and communities. We're meant to touch each other and snuggle and love. And I think so many things about the modern world are force us apart from that. But I think my archetype essentially is the caregiving, giver, nurturer person, and I'm a huge connector. I'm the person that might connect you with my best friend, and you end up being best friends, and I'm not going to be jealous about that, because that's just what I was put on the earth to do, and that makes me happy.
Nice. Okay, talk to us about your super skills. You've had them because you couldn't have done the Good Morning America or CBS Morning Show or all the journalistic stuff. You know how to walk in and read the room. You know how to read the room probably before you even walked into it, but you've still evolved over time. What is this personal awareness that you have? How do you describe your spider sense, your spider skills, your
Mm.
superhero skills? How have they evolved? And can you share something? Did it start in childhood? Did you used to be able to call doubles and backgammon and do it 3 times in a row? Talk to us about what skills do you have when you were a kid, during the journalism days, then since then, and how has it evolved now? Like, are you an empath? Are you a super feeler? You're already a super connector, but that means you've got some sort of a skill behind it all.
I am a super empath and a super feeler, like too much. So sometimes I can walk in a room and tell you what everybody's feeling and what they're doing. And I think you have the same ability. And it can be heavy. It can be
Hmm.
way too much. And I just came through a couple of days of really trying to help somebody and help this nonprofit. And I put myself way out there. And I could feel every neuron in my body just tingling like someone had pulled me out of my shell. It was just the other thing about me is I'm a super extroverted person who's looks super cheery and happy and loves people, and I do. But what I've also realized later in life is I'm a type B masquerading as a type A.
Hmm.
So in other words, I'll be that introvert on my own terms. What does that mean? That means you do not want to throw me a surprise party. I don't want to know, I don't want to be surprised at having to be up and social. Some people love that and they're great at that. I want to bring my big American self, as somebody once called it, when I know that's coming, and I'll prepare for that. Because I think the older I get, the more I need these moments of repose and recharge and just not talking to people. That's one thing interesting thing I've noticed about myself. But I am a super empath. I have a hard time shutting that down sometimes, and yet I think it's a superpower. It allows me to do what I do, which is a media trainer and communications coach to leaders and CEOs, celebrities, and everyday people. And it's so much fun. But I can hear what you want to say, re-say it back to you, and help you say it better. And that has to do with reading the room, as you said.
And I have a follow-up question, but before we do, these one-liners, sound bites, whatever you want to call it, do you just pull those out quick? You know what the situation demands for a speech, or
Yes.
again, a sound bite if you're media prepping someone.
Yes, and I'll tell you we're getting granular about what I do now, but most people know way too much about what they know. So I'm a human whiteboard and I just listen and then I spit back how you can top line it, make an impact, create a call to action. It's not brilliance or anything. It's just what I do. I'm a word nerd and a writer, obviously, and I love that. Spent years in marketing. So you put all that stuff together and I can hear it in my head. Yeah.
I was a public relations guy for 16 years in New York, business and stuff. So long story. So I get it.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about boundaries. This has been something that you had to learn at an early, part of your career being a journalist, interviewing, interacting with so many people. But you might have only done it at a career level originally, and then later, how are you handling it now energetically? Or is there room for better boundaries? How do you want to describe this whole trajectory over a few decades?
I think my boundaries are becoming, you need to say no more,
Mm.
me. Because there was a time when I said yes to everything and that worked and that was great and that brought awareness to the foundation and our veterans. It brought in money. It fueled probably a lot of my grief that I maybe should have felt earlier in my life over what happened. I just kept moving because that's what I do. So I think that was my coping strategy. Um, but I think now I need different things to, feel healthy. I think those moments where you can just be not do anything, right?
Do you have any books that you've loved over the years? Like I just looked at Emotional Freedom by Judith Orloff. That is fantastic for boundaries, but also if you have to deal with a workplace where there's an emotional vampire, she handles that with a few chapters, lickety split. Are there any resources outside of you that you've been drawing on over time, or can you re-tackle this question all over again? How are you handling those boundaries, like on a daily level? Before you walk into a meeting, do you do something specific to ground yourself and still keep the highest level of interaction going without interfering with your special skills. What are you doing on that front? What's the secret to Lee Woodruff?
I know, I think it's as I've gotten older, I've been able to listen to my gut. I think our guts are so, there are three ways we make a decision: the head, the heart, and the gut. And I think the gut breaks the tie. So if this just doesn't feel right on some level, you can rationalize and intellectualize it in your head. You can go all emotion with your heart, but the gut is the decider. And I've gotten much better at listening to my gut.
What's your gut telling you?
Create boundaries.
What's your gut telling you for future projects, book ideas? Is there any fiction coming that you're
I am trying to work so damn hard on finishing this novel this summer. That's my goal. So my goal is to get this out in the world, and I just asked your angel to help me do that, and that's my summer project. So
that was
yeah.
before the show, and we will blow a little sage in a little bit. Can you, without giving away anything about the book that your publicist would hate you, your agent, the publishing house, what are you allowed to tell us about the book so people can have an expectation and be running?
Yeah. I've already got the elevator pitch, and it's going to sound weird, and it's not perfect in any way. It's the arc of a life of a woman from, high school to later, but it's King Lear meets the psychedelic 70s. So I'll leave it at that, including Charles Manson. That's all I'm going to say.
Nice. That's
I have
colorful.
always been fascinated with the idea. And this book has had many in the last 10 years. I've written a bunch of things that didn't work after my last novel. And then I set everything aside for a while, and as my career was intense. And I've come back to it, and I think I've finally got something. But I have always been fascinated with, we were talking about the 70s earlier. What would have happened if I was 10 years older? Would I have been one of those lost flower children in Haight-Ashbury? Would I have been who would I have been? I was born just at the right time to have missed all that. But it was such a fundamentally appealing thing to the youth after the repression of the 1960s and the buzz cut and the everybody go to church on Sunday. Like, who would I have been? That fascinates me.
Okay, I'm going to read a little passage to you. Let's get your reaction. Or again, the patented response, because I feel like this is right up your alley. And here we go. Sometimes the person next to you or a stranger just needs validation via love and compassion. A smile changes any moment, so too does laughter or a few kind words. Be compassion to all. Do it.
I feel like I could have written that. Yeah. I am so energized during a day by putting love out. I've noticed that about myself lately. If I walk through the day happy, smile at someone, pass them on the street, and they're not looking at me, and I say, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm the first one to do that, I'm not looking for anything back, and I'm certainly not trying to, make sound like I'm some saint. But we get love off people if we give it first, and everybody just most 99.9% of people respond appropriately. They were just too shy or too busy or too in their own thoughts to think about it. If you go through the day like that, looking to give love, you will fall into bed a way happier person than you woke up.
Okay, and now we're going to do kind of a game show move here. I got 18 pages of quotes, whether it's Eckhart Tolle, St. Augustine from Angels, Luke, or Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars. I'm giving you 3 Winnie the Pooh quotes if I can actually remember what they are. I've got technically a few of them right in front of me. Winnie the Pooh is a pretty deep philosopher. Here we go.
Yeah.
I just want to get a reaction, whatever it generates. You may be like,
Okay.
that's my favorite quote.
I just have to say something. I just have to make a statement. Okay, I'm ready.
That was a good one. Some people talk to animals. Not many listen, though. That's the problem. Winnie the Pooh. I say that's the opportunity for us all. Next quote. Weeds are flowers too, once you get to know them. And then Piglet asked once of Winnie the Pooh, how do you spell love? And Winnie the Pooh said, you don't spell it, you feel it.
Oh, well, I love all those things. I think A.A. Milne was brilliant. And I think if you can speak to the heart of a child, then you can make an adult feel the love they felt as a child again.
Okay, now we're really going to spin the wheel and actually have to find random quotes.
Okay.
Of course, I turned right to weeds or flowers too, so I can't reuse a quote.
Nope, you can't get a do-over on that.
No, and here, we went really new age. This is Seth, 1971. Jane Roberts kind of kicked off the whole New
Yeah,
Age.
we're kind of been in the 70s for the whole hour here. Yeah.
Yeah, we have. So I guess this is appropriate. The answers to the nature of reality. This is deep. So we're going to count this as one quote because he goes on for 3 sentences here. The answers to the nature of reality, the intimate knowledge of all that is that you all seek is within your present experience. It will not be found outside of yourselves, but through an inner journey into yourself, and through the world that you know. And I'll add one more totally happy quote. The vitality of the universe is creativity and joy and love, and that is spirituality. Again, Seth, probably from Seth Speaks or The Nature of Reality, those books. What's your reaction to that one?
I totally agree. I think that the understanding of the greater world, we have to understand ourselves first. And the unexamined life is, wow, not worth living in my book. Like life is a constant quest, not just to understand who you are in a myopic way, but to understand how you fit into the universe and how you can be part of it with others.
Okay, this is compliment time for yourself. What's one big compliment you want to, your higher self is screaming this right now, wants to give you as a t-shirt to wear around for the next 3 weeks? What's a singing your praise compliment, how you've handled things for the last decade plus?
Be direct with your feelings, be transparent about where you're coming from, approach any situation with intent, with good intention. In other words, assume that the person wasn't doing something evil, that they had a reason for what they did, and listen more, talk less. That's always my journey.
Sounds like you've developed also lightning quick cat-like reflexes to handle pretty much anything that comes your way. Is that accurate?
I'm really kind of done doing that. So could you just talk to some of your angels about maybe that at least cup is full. She's had her share, if there is such a thing.
Yeah. So you've
Yeah.
been in a triage situation more, you don't need to do triage anymore. And yet when stuff comes along, you know how to react quickly to deal with
I
it.
would call myself the person you want to be with if the elevator's going down. I will
Not even
fall
stuck if it's going down.
going down. I'm not going to be able to do anything, but I will fall apart later. But in that moment, I will become crystal clear and steely calm about what we need to do, which
And
is probably duck and say, "Oh my God, we're going to all die." But whatever, you're going
well,
down.
let's throw a little MacGyver in there, chewing
Yeah,
gum that's used, paperclip
100%. My
and a nail.
belt, whipping off my belt and sticking it over the cable and MacGyvering that baby. Yeah, I might do
Exactly.
that.
Okay. Which book should people go to first that's already out? And it could be Bob's, it could be your joint book, it could be yours. Which one do you
I
want to
think
start?
it's our joint book. I think In an Instant is it's called In an Instant, a family's journey of love and healing. Honestly, I didn't set out to write a book. As a writer, it was my journal. And as soon as I could get my computer in the hospital, that was the only part of my day I could control, was writing about what happened. And I knew if Bob lived, he would want to know what it was like. And I knew I wouldn't remember a damn thing in the ICU. So I just began to write, and that ended up being that book. And then Bob added his parts, and it goes back and forth with our marriage and life and what was happening after the blast. And it came out at #1 when it was released, and it stayed there for 8 weeks. And I still have people saying that book was the only thing that got me through, fill in the blank on the tragedy or whatever. And it's a funny book. It's a poignant book. You'll laugh, you'll cry, but it's a life, fill in the blank on what the bad thing is. Something will befall all of us. And I don't mean that to sound like a witch out of a Disney movie, but it's just life. And I think the more that you share your story with people, the more we all understand that we can get through it.
Okay, we're wrapping up, with the sort of usual game show questions here. How do you define success? It would have been probably different 20 years ago, 15 years ago than you do now. What's the deep wisdom you've got to share with us on success?
Well, it's certainly not fame, and it's certainly not money, because neither of those things are going to make you happy at your core. I think success is going to bed at night and feeling like you've done the things you've wanted to do, and you've told the people that you love them.
Okay, what does Lee do to slow down during a typical day if you need to slow down? You've used up all your energy, you've helped people, you've done your writing. Now you need to just say, whoa, Nelly, and slow those horses down. What are the few methods you use besides jumping in a lake, which you just did before the show?
Did. My hair is wet. I'm gonna own that. I told Michael that. I'm gonna reverse engineer that. I'm gonna MacGyver that because I'm not a good winder downer. When I'm winding down after work is done and the dishes are done and the kitchen's clean, probably going to bed. So my wind down is when I first wake up, and it's going to the YMCA and doing 40 minutes of laps. I'm a swimmer, and it's a meditative mind thing for me, as well as a fabulous exercise for every part of your body. And so I start the day with that.
Mm. Touching water, great way to reset or just to touch joy even.
Yeah.
Okay, another one of those quotes. You can be happy now in this very moment without a single reason. What's your reaction?
So true. That's a mindset.
Hmm. And you don't have a self-help mindset book coming out that you're not telling us about that you've had percolating around for a while?
I don't. I've had people try to get me to write one, but I don't think I have a whole book in me on that. Maybe an article or a lovely podcast like this. I'm so tired of talking about myself and my story. And so I'd much rather sit here and have a conversation with someone like you who just, pulls it out of me with intelligent questions that are probing. I think that's far more interesting than me just telling people how they should live.
Well, for the record, you're a very good judge of character, and I just wanted to say that humbly on the show. So thank you. Thanks for the compliment. Okay, last little bit here. If you could do a retreat leading others, you got to be on for, like 5 days for a retreat. Where would it be around the globe? And what do you think now you're well positioned to talk about? Is it resilience, that getting up in the morning and seizing life, by the reins?
I think you just nailed it, honestly, because the first things that come to mind are sort of writing and other things like that. And I would not be a good teacher at that. But I have spoken at lengths on kind of climbing back up and everybody's journey and what your own personal thing is. So I don't know if I have 5 days worth, if I could maybe cut that in half. But yeah, I think it would be, but I would never be the teacher guru person. That's not my archetype. I would be the collaborative person. So I would want us all in a circle showing up as equal teachers with one another. That's how I would run something like that. I
Mm.
don't particularly have any area of expertise. So I think we all are experts in some. No, I don't. I've just been through some stuff.
You
But
got a
but
little bit of
everybody
expertise.
everybody has. Like I'm a more collaborator than I am at stand in front of the room and tell you what I
They
know.
say experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. Well, I mean, hold on. You've got a ton of experience, period. And you're good with words. You're good with reading the room. I have a feeling you know how to taste the wind on folks and
I do. Yeah,
help
but
them a
I
little bit.
5 days would exhaust me. I think I'd be
Oh,
burned
yeah.
out. Give
So
me 2 days and I'm
2 days,
there.
3-day retreat with other
Yeah,
co-leaders who can help do the
that's right.
hard stuff. Yeah.
I'm all in. Yeah.
Got it. There, that worked. But you still skipped the main part of the question. Is it Greece, Costa Rica? You get to choose any.
Oh,
Some institute's funding you. You don't have to pay the bill on this. Where do you want to go and where do
I
you want
think I'd go to Patagonia.
to? Ooh, okay.
I've never been there, so yeah.
It's that time of the show. You can catch a little bit of sage. I'm going to light some sage at home. It's time to put a comment and react to something that Lee said. Don't just be like, hey, I love Lee. Type that out. Type it out 5 times.
Wow, I love you back.
See? So type something, subscribe, like, share. Again, public service announcement. Have fun with this. Just do some emojis and make the
I'm
emoji
smelling that
count.
right now.
Oh,
Smelling.
that means you're hyper intuitive because I hadn't even officially lit it. Some people taste it. Some people start smelling it just when we're lighting it. If people at home want to catch the smell of sage through 2 screens, no biggie. Time and space isn't what you think. Remember the old phones? You thought of Aunt Martha. She called you at the same time you were calling her.
Yeah.
That's all this is. And here's the feather, but catch a little bit of flowers, anything. You haven't had honeysuckle, lavender, wisteria, hyacinth, if I said it correctly. Catch something. Hibiscus, catch Maui in the air. Maui's fun. And are you getting any flowers, Lee?
A little. I'm getting more minty, kind of sagey minty. Yeah.
Welcome to the Angels Positivity and Club. I haven't started it yet, but in 2025, I'll figure out a way to come back to you with some perks, benefits, and something super fun. It won't be 2 mouse ears, though, like the 70s. Okay, I had to bring it back in. I am going to put up one angel photo for you only because it's Claire. It's my dog's guardian angel, but obviously she does more. She has 80,000 humans as acting as a guardian angel, but she's all about resilience. And you don't have to do anything, but if you want to put your hand up and feel something, people at home can do it. Or you can hear a little whisper. It'll sound like your higher self, your intuition. What do you think 1/3 of your intuition has been the last 30 years since you were 5? Back to the 70s again. I'm good. And what are you getting from Claire? One last topic for you to espouse on using complex words here.
Well, I mean, I'm feeling the love from Claire. Claire is rewarding me for, being able to share the importance of resilience. So, yeah.
Okay, you know how to wind things down. You have been doing journalism forever. You're a pro. You've got a huge pedigree. What do you want to leave us with that's inspiring, a reminder, or remember to remember, if you can remember, to remember when you remember? And that's actually borrowing from Songyal Rinpoche, who taught his students for 35 years, remember to remember. I, of course, came up with the complex version of that. What should we all be keeping in our hearts? Not up here. What's the difference? How do we do this thing called life? Lee Woodruff, you're wrapping up the show for us.
Goodness, you're looking for one sound bite to send everybody off into the good night? Is that,
Hey,
is that?
you can take a whole couple paragraphs here. Think of the alchemist changing the direction of the desert wind. What does that mean? Go any which way you want with this. Go literature.
Okay, but I'm going to go short and sweet because that's what I teach CEOs to do. And I think it's just that you have the power within your head and your heart and your gut to create your day and to create the way you walk through the world. So look up. Don't look at your feet the whole time. Look up. When you look up, you open the aperture of what's possible. And when that happens, you open your heart and you open yourself to possibility. So when you're looking at the ground and you're seeing the dust and the stones, look up. It'll all feel better.
Brilliant. Probably one of the best endings out of 130 plus shows. I love what you just said. Thank
You
you.
say that to everybody. Come on, Michael.
Not true, but could try.
Okay.
You don't get
All
any
right.
ground on that one. Lee Woodruff, thank you for coming on Angels, Positivity, and Love. Fabulous interview. Could feel the energy at home. I bet they did too. And they're going to tell you in the comments section in years ahead, this is going to have many more views. So make a deal that in like 2026, 2027, you come back in, peek at the show and see what you got.
Love it. And maybe I'll have some new wisdom. So invite me back.
So you're welcome to come back anytime you want, especially with, books and other projects that you want to talk about. So
Awesome. Thank you for being such a great facilitator and interviewer.
thank you, Lee.